Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories. I'm so glad that you're here. I am Cher Gospic, your host. Today on the podcast, I speak with Jeaneen Tang. Jeaneen is a speech language pathologist, and she wrote a book called Play Dumb and Sabotage. The title is not what you probably think. It wasn't what I thought. I actually read it, and I'm handing it off to someone that I think might benefit from it. But our word of the week this week
It's the word of the week.
is actually two words. It's over anticipate. She talks about when she's working with children and even when she's working with adults that need speech therapy, how we often over anticipate their needs and we don't wait for them to tell us what they are. We just give it to them. We're sabotaging them when we do that. We're hurting them because we're not giving them an opportunity to tell us what they need. I have a grown son with autism. This is still a struggle for me because I know what he wants before he even asks me. So I totally get it. But it made me think, and I think it will make you think as well. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for talking to me today. I've been looking forward to this. Um, I have a son who is grown who has autism. And so speech therapy and all of that is something I'm very familiar with. I did went through lots of that. And so, I have friends who have children who are on the spectrum who have had to go through speech therapy. I just know a lot of people. I mean, nowadays I think it's very, very common. But I was really looking forward to talking to you. I did read your book. I think this is a great resource for people. And I actually have somebody I'm sending it to after we're done. I just wanted to have it handy with me today. So I want to know, because you have a very interesting story. You have some crazy things that happened, but you were interested in speech pathology before your son was born. Is that correct? You were already
That's
doing it,
yeah,
which is that's amazing that you already were involved in that. So will you tell me your story and kind of why you became interested in speech therapy and then why you wrote your book?
absolutely. So the interest in speech therapy, I didn't even know what speech therapy was until I was, ready to apply to grad school. But my need and want to help people
Mhm.
started all the way back. My earliest memories of when I was 8 years old, and
Wow.
my grandfather was sick and he had lung cancer and he passed away. And I remember feeling at the time very helpless. Like,
Mhm.
I'm 8 years old, but I really loved my grandfather. I wanted to help him more than I was physically able to. I wasn't big enough to walk him
Right.
or do much for him. And I think that really planted the seed of wanting to help and the need to help people.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. And when you're in elementary school, I think a lot of people are like, I think I want to be a teacher because we have great teachers, right? We have great
Yeah.
mentors and models. And then as I went to high school, I started playing sports and I was athletic. And then I heard about physical therapy, and I was like, well, that could have been someone that could have helped my grandfather. So I was looking down that path. And
Mhm.
at the time, I you would need a master's degree to practice, and so I knew that I was going to have to go to graduate school. So why not get my undergraduate degree in something completely different, which I also love, which is English literature and creative writing. So
Yeah.
I took like at least 18 to 21 credits every semester because I was doing my bachelor's program
Wow.
for English. And then I was doing also extra science stuff so I could apply to grad school. So
Right.
there was never a semester I had less than 18 credits. I would say 18 to 21. It was insane.
That's a lot.
And when it became time to apply for physical therapy school, it seemed like everybody was going to apply. I
Hmm.
went to a school that had physical therapy and in the graduate program, and I was like, oh, everybody that I was going to undergraduate school, I felt like everybody was going to go and apply to it. And I was like, I don't know if I wanted to be in a profession that's going to be so saturated with people.
Hmm.
And someone mentioned to me, have you thought about speech therapy? Because in high school, I did performance speeches as
Hmm.
competitions. And in college, I did a little bit of that as well. So I had a lot of experience speaking to people, and English literature, has a lot of language and communication involved with that
Hmm.
as well. So whoever, mentioned speech therapy to me, I was like, I've never actually experienced speech therapy. I didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
But looking back, my friend from elementary school, her mother was a speech therapist. And after I went to grad school, I actually worked in the same school district as my friend's mom,
Oh,
which was
well.
ironic. It was just like, oh, that's what you did. I never knew, but it
Yeah.
was such a great profession to get into because
Mhm.
you do get to work with people and you get to help people. And, I love working with both populations, adults and kids. I
Yeah.
see kids 3 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, and I see adults 2 days a week in the hospital. And,
Yeah.
I have colleagues who only do kids and I have colleagues who only do adults.
Mhm.
And I don't think that my brain and body is wired to do that. Like I
Yeah.
love I love the variety. I think if I was doing one population only, I think I would have FOMO. I'd be like, "Oh
Right.
wait, I really want to work with the other population too."
Yeah.
So for me, it works out great because it really fulfills my ability to help both kids and adults as well. And some of the same strategies you use with children are the same strategies you use with older adults as well.
Right.
As I'm working with this gentleman who has a speaking valve, right?
Mhm.
So he doesn't speak very well, but and we're working on swallowing. So
Mhm.
every time he wants to have a little bit of ice or water, I'm making him ask for it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand here until you ask me what you want. You have to be stubborn with them as well
Yes.
because otherwise they're just going to be like expecting you to feed them.
Yeah.
And just and I'm like, no, 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 you're working on two things. You're working on speech and you're working on swallowing. So if you want some of this lovely water that you've been asking for, then you need to use your words. So
Right.
yeah.
So tell me why you wrote your book.
So I wrote my book. I had the idea of a book a long, long time ago, and when I was going through early speech therapy, and I just didn't know kind of how to put it on paper and
Mhm.
make it a book. But I would make like handouts for teachers and parents, and I wanted to be able to help more people. And I remember before I had my son, I told my brother, I'm going to write a book about, behavioral intervention, speech therapy, and all that stuff. And my brother at the time was like, no one's going to read your book or believe you because you're not a parent. And I'm like, what are
I
you
was
talking
shocked
about?
when I read that. I'm like, that's not very nice.
Well, and when it have as a parent who has a child with special needs, sometimes you come across therapists who are like, you
Right.
don't have a kid, you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I can see that point of view, but at the time I was like a little offended.
Yeah.
It was like, I was like, what do you mean? I'm a great therapist. I'm sure I could teach people things.
Yeah.
But I took that into account, and I continued to work and everything, and I just kind of that idea of a book was on the back burner, but the idea of play dumb and sabotage, which is a
Yeah.
term and title of the book, was
Mhm.
always something that it was on the forefront because I used it all the time. I would
Yeah.
tell parents, play dumb, and this is how you sabotage your day in order to create situations for your child to practice language.
Yeah.
And my son is going to be 12 now, and
Wow.
he's amazing, but I do want to be able to create a greater impact in the world,
Yeah.
but also cherish the time that I have with him
Mhm.
because he's going to get older and I don't want to work more per
Yeah.
se. I want to maintain as the amount of freedom that we have to, pick him up from school, do all kinds of activities, but also on the other side, I do want to help parents,
Yeah.
help educators, caregivers, and to be just more aware. I think the awareness part is a big thing that lacks because, even with kids that are normal developing, they don't have autism, they don't have a brain injury, they don't have all these other Down syndrome and things.
Mhm.
Sometimes these parents just don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And, so we're told to go to birthing classes when we have a child, but then you take this child home and you don't know what to do. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, they say we need to change the diaper and feed the child and make sure it's not too warm or too cold. And we need to meet all these needs for the child, but how do we
Right.
interact with the child?
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of parents who, and to no fault of their own, they just were good parents in the sense they met all their child's needs, but they
Right.
just didn't know how to interact with the child and to
Yeah.
play vocal play, make eye contact, make funny noises. Let there be, I call it a conversation, whether it's with
Mhm.
words or not words, right? Even if it's just with just funny faces or eye contact or some kind of sound, I still call that interaction a conversation
Yeah,
because it's one person communicating to the other and the other person is communicating back.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved, until I read it, I didn't know what play dumb and sabotage meant because it sounds like it, and my first thought was, okay, don't do anything and you're going to mess up your kid because you're not helping them at all. But that's not exactly what you talked about. What do you mean by play dumb when you're working with a child?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So people are like, that sounds like a very harsh title. Uh, it goes into the idea as, caregivers and even educators, we know what the child needs,
Right.
right? We anticipate as parents, now that I am a parent, I know all the over anticipation that goes into, oh, why are they going to cry? Why are they going to do this or that? I'm going to meet their need before they cry. I'm going to
Right.
meet their need before they're hungry, right? I'm going to over anticipate what the child needs because in our minds, that's a good parent, a good
Right.
caregiver. And that is, right? Because
Hmm.
a parent, caregiver, even educator needs to know what children need.
Right.
We need to be able to assess that. If we didn't know what they needed and it's just like, you just had no idea, then that child would not be taken care of. It would be wet, it'd be hungry, it'd be cold or hot. So as parents and caregivers, educators, we over anticipate, and that's something that we, logically do. But that is a disservice to a child a lot of times
Yeah.
because we have so many kids, and even kids that are on the spectrum, we are, as there's a little bit of the parental guilt, right? Because even if my child with his brain injury and stroke, I still have parental guilt. I'm like, well, if he hadn't fallen, he'd be
Right.
normal, so you kind of want to make up for that guilt in a way,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I feel, oh, absolutely. So um, we need to identify that we're trying to over anticipate
Mm.
and then reel that back and mindfully under anticipate. And what I mean that is like, don't act before the child indicates.
Yeah.
You know, you can maybe, if your child is hungry, you might show them the food and maybe take it away rather than, oh, I know it's snack time. Here's all the food,
Right.
right? Or if you do snack time, like today I was working with a little girl and she saw this cookie in the side of my bag and
Hmm.
she was like, and she can say cookie. She has
Hmm.
a number of little words,
Yeah.
single words. She can say cookie. She was pointing at it. I go, you want that? And she goes, yeah, yeah. So, okay. We opened it up. I gave her just a little piece of that cookie.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a gigantic cookie. It was just a
Right.
regular cookie, but I just gave her a little piece. And she's like, more, more, more. But I know she knows cookie.
Right.
Let's combine that. More what? More cookie. And then she was able to combine the two words.
Yeah.
And then I gave her another little piece. So the sabotage part is she knows I have all this cookie in my
Right.
hand. And she's like, oh, I just want that cookie. But I'm going to play dumb. If you don't say more cookie, then you're
Right.
not going to get the cookie, right? If
Yeah.
you just get more, I go, I know you can say more. More of what? I don't know. More high five, more something,
Hmm.
so you know what they want, but then you mindfully under anticipate and mindfully play dumb. So you
Yeah.
can create those opportunities for them to practice.
You know, I spoke to another author who talked about reading, and I did the same thing with this book that I did with hers, that I talk about all the things I wish I would have done differently when my son was growing up. But he is grown, he lives with us, he's pretty high functioning, and he can do a lot of things on his own. He takes care of himself really well, but I still over anticipate things for him. It is still something that I struggle with. As old as he is, I know his routine. I know things that can get done quickly if I do them, or I know what he wants before he even asks me for it. And so this is something I'm really going to try to step back and let him initiate, because he's so routine. He's like, I can be gone, and if I look at my watch, I can tell exactly what he's doing. I know what he's doing because he has such, a routine schedule. So I know when he's hungry. I know when he wants to eat. I know when he wants a snack. I know when he does all these things, but I over anticipate so much with him because of that. And so it's hard for me. That's terrible. As old as he is, it is hard for me, but it is something that I have to watch myself with, because I'm just so used to not everything, but a lot. I'm used to just doing before
Mhm.
he even asks for it.
Oh
It's
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I still have to do it every day too, because as soon as my son goes, Mom, I know what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, "What did you-" and I go, and then I'm like, he'll go, Mom. I go, yes. And then he doesn't reply, and I'm like, that's when you tell me what you want.
Yeah.
But even now, I'm just like, dude, when I answer you, then respond.
Yeah.
And even though he's almost 12, I'm like, he still does it. So I think it's a lifelong thing for some people. And
Right.
even adults, like I said, working with the patient that I'm working with now, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna stand here. I've let you
Yeah.
know that I'm gonna stand here until you're ready and to tell me something.
Yeah. And it's not that you just want to get it done. It's just automatic. You know what they want. So it's easy to just provide. And so it's something, and even with my son, when I ask him open-ended questions, it takes a while for him to process. He can say
Yeah,
yes or no pretty quickly, but if I ask him an open-ended question, and that's terrible for me to be impatient and not want to wait, or, he does better if I give him options. He can
absolutely.
choose. And so I
Yeah.
try to do that. But like every Friday night, we have movie night, he and my husband and I. And if we ask him what he wants to watch, it's too much, too many
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
options.
So you might
But if
ask
we
him,
give
what
him,
genre? What genre should we watch? Should we watch
right.
comedy or
Yeah,
horror? And then from there, you guys can decide what you want, or you can show him.
exactly. I can only watch Mario so many times before we have to pick something else. Or we'll give him, a few options. What about these? And he can figure it out. But it's definitely something I'm still trying to work on. So I loved being reminded of that. Um, like I said, I know so many people that could benefit from this book. I mean, it really is. It's a great resource for anybody that's working with a child that, is working on speech. So I'm definitely, when I post everything, obviously I'm going to post about the book, but I'll have your website and everything available for people so that um,
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
can
I've
get
been
it.
I've been giving the book to my friends that are having children.
Yeah, that's a great
I'm like,
idea.
as a baby shower gift, I'm like, read this now, just skim through
Yes.
it, so you can kind
Yes.
of have an idea and a foundation of how to interact with your child. And
Sure.
like one of the big things, I hear this all the time when I'm working when I'm working at the school. I see some kids at a preschool, and then I hear teachers or other therapists ask kids a yes no question,
Mhm.
like, "Are you ready to clean up?
Right.
Can you say this? Can
Yeah.
you do this?" And I'm like, one of my chapters is like, don't ask a yes no question unless
Right.
you're ready to honor that no.
Yeah.
Because if you say no, you can't really say, well, you're gonna do it anyway.
Right.
You
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you say, are you ready to clean up? And they say no, then you're like, okay. You can say, well, then you have 2 minutes more. You
Right.
need to have something that it indicates that you've honored their no and you're gonna continue. You still have to do it, but you're gonna do it maybe a little bit later.
Yes, exactly. What is, you probably have lots of these. What's a memorable moment or something that happened that has really stood out to you since you've been doing all of this, that something amazing that happened, or just a goal that was met that really was exciting to you?
In the past year, I've worked with a handful of kids who were almost nonverbal.
Oh,
Like
wow.
they had very few words. They were babbling, and because the parents were able to anticipate their needs, the parents kind of interpreted that as, oh, I understand them. I understand what they're
Right.
saying. Um, and these kids were able to get early intervention services because they were just 2 years old.
Yeah.
And once we convinced the parents, please go get these services, it's free.
Yeah.
I can see these kids at their preschool in their natural environment, so I can talk to the teachers and all that stuff. Once the kids started saying actual words and like
Yeah.
combining those into phrases and sentences, and then having short conversations with their parents, that was like, to
That's
have their parents
big.
like, I understand them. And,
Yeah.
so and so such said the most funny thing yesterday. For the parents to have this light bulb of like, oh wow, this is very different, and he's made so much progress. The
Right.
child and children, both boys and girls. Those are really warm my heart, and it really just, it really helps to continue the passion of why I work with children and love working with young
Yeah.
children, because is kids are, they are little sponges, and they will be able to learn things as well as you are able to show them and instruct
Sure.
them and practice with them. And I
Yeah.
say repetition is so key, because just like when you're playing a sport, if you're going to shoot a free throw, but you don't really shoot it very often, you're going to probably miss more often than not.
Right.
If you practice it, repetition, repetition, your accuracy is going to get better, and you're just going to be able to do it more consistently.
Yeah.
And it's always great, I get to work with the kids directly, but to talk to their parents, I think that's
Right.
see their excitement about how they're interacting with their kids now. I think
Yeah.
that's even almost more exciting than working with the kids, because it's like it kind of validates the child's
Right.
progress, and it
Yes.
just validates their communication um, progress and development, which is amazing.
Yeah. Well, as a parent, I can tell you when you talk to those parents and you give them hope that, these services can help or that, whatever, that is huge for them because my oldest son, he is fine, but when he started talking, he was 3 and started school for speech. We couldn't understand anything he said. Like he had his own language. He talked all the time, but I knew what he wanted, but I did not understand anything he said. And I remember meeting his teacher for the first time, and she and I still are friends on Facebook. I mean, I just love her to death. But she was talking to him and she was talking to us, and she was not phased. She was totally confident that he's going to be fine. And I just went home and cried because I was like, he's never going to be able to talk. Like, I was so afraid. He got a degree in vocal performance in music.
Oh
So
wow,
clearly
amazing.
he learned how to speak clearly. But just that confidence that you bring to those parents is a big deal
Yeah,
because it puts their minds at ease. I can promise.
amazing. Yeah, sometimes, because kids will model what they hear. So
Hmm.
sometimes, because adults speak pretty quickly, if we're having a
Yeah.
conversation, we might be talking very quickly. And so what they hear is what they kind of express, right? So
Right.
they're hearing, so they're like, oh yeah, well, that's how you're supposed to talk. So one of the things I say is just to slow your speech down just a little
Mhm.
bit, so that they understand that there are different parts of sounds that make up different words, and
Right.
then different words make up these other, sentences. They'll learn that they're sentences, but just a thought,
Right.
right? So just slowing it down, just like when you're learning a foreign language.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will listen to, I'm trying to learn Spanish, and I will hear people speak in normal conversation. I'm like, I picked up 2 words.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what they said. I think I know 2 things, but
Yeah.
I equate it to that, and hopefully one day I will be able to speak Spanish. But
Oh, you
that's
will.
a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But one thing too, like going back to parents, like some parents are like, so eager for that help, and then
Hmm.
some parents are so like, no, there's nothing wrong with my child.
Yeah.
And so working with so many different parents,
Mhm.
it's there's such a wide range, right? There's
Yeah.
parents who are just like, I will help me. How can you help me? And then some parents are like, no, I understand my child fine. I don't know what you can do for your child, my child, that I can't do for my child.
Yeah.
And it's a ego thing.
Mhm.
And in an ego, I'm not saying that they're stuck up or anything like that, but I'm saying that their ego, as far as they think in a way, if I am saying your child needs speech therapy, that it's a criticism on their parenting skills, which
Right.
it's not. It's not,
Yeah.
right? They're not a speech language pathologist. They're not a language expert. And you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So
Right. Yeah, it's a hard thing. And even it's hard to admit sometimes when your child needs something. It's like you don't want there to be anything wrong. You don't want, that if he needs speech therapy, it's because there's an issue. And that sometimes is a scary thing too, to have to face. I went through that with my son, not with speech, but just with the diagnosis. It's, you don't want to have to admit that there's something that's wrong. But on the other hand, it's, detrimental to them when you don't and you can't get them help earlier. So this book is great for baby showers. It's great for new parents. Who did you write this book for? Who would benefit most from this book?
the biggest population I wrote it for were for those parents with like normal developing kids. Because as an early intervention speech therapist, I do see so many kids
Yeah.
who are completely normal developing, physically fine, cognitively fine, receptive language is great. They can follow directions,
Mm-hmm.
just not speaking.
Right.
And these parents are thinking, okay, everything's fine. They can do all this other stuff. And if they were just educated a little bit better, we
Yeah.
can, I think we can decrease the number of kids who would need early intervention speech therapy, right? I think
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest goals is to decrease the number of kids
Sure.
that need it, because there are already so many other kids who really truly need speech therapy,
Right.
right? I think everybody can benefit from the book, but if we could decrease the number of normal developing kids that wouldn't need speech therapy if their parents and caregivers were a little bit more knowledgeable and educated,
Mm-hmm.
I think we could concentrate, the speech therapy profession with other kids who have autism, who have
Right.
other things that really need that special care.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's a great book. I can't wait. I'm going to send it off tomorrow to somebody that I know will benefit from it. So I thank you for talking to me today. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to tell me about?
Oh, I think you asked it all. I think you asked it all. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Sure, sure. I'm excited to share this. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and
Thank
I
you.
will get this edited and sent over to you, and can't wait to share it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. All right, you too. Bye bye.